less than 2 months left until the 2011 Orange Bowl, the fleet as a whole looked very strong in terms of boat speed and boat handling, but I think that a few main areas, including starting and tactics, could use some attention. So in this debrief, I will quickly review some boat speed tips and then talk mainly about positioning upwind and downwind. This weekend we saw almost exclusively side force conditions. Crews were always on the wire, skippers were rarely hiking, and boat speed gains were almost always made by teams who were able to sail higher while going the same speed as everyone else. In these conditions, stability is key. The teams who used their weight and sail trim more effectively to keep the rigs stable tended to end up near the front of the pack in each race. The biggest contributor to stability is probably main sheet trim and vang tension. In the side force conditions, it was very important to keep the rig straight, to close off the leech and to keep the sail full, so the ideal setup was to have very little boom vang and instead to adjust leech tension using primarily main sheet. If you watch the good teams, you'll see that they ease only to prevent the sails from stalling and never to depower in puffs. In practice, it's important to ease when puffs hit because the aft apparent wind shift will cause the sails to stall if you don't. However, it's essential to flatten with weight and trim back immediately after the boat accelerates. Downwind boat speed was largely a function of sailing angle and transition ability. All weekend, conditions were at the cusp of transition between sitting in the boat and trapping, and the teams that went fastest downwind were the ones who did the best job of figuring out which mode they needed to sail in and transitioning when breeze strength changed. This is a major place for improvement in the fleet as a whole. Despite the variations in boat speed, I think that the biggest deciding factors this weekend were tactics and execution. Although everyone knew that the right was favored, most of the races were decided by the tactics surrounding the first starboard tack ley line, so I'll start by sharing my thoughts regarding these tactics. In Santa Barbara, the wind is strongly influenced by the geography of Ledbetter Point, causing boats to experience a persistent righty as they get nearer to the point, and a persistent lefty as they sail downwind away from the point. This geographic shift eliminates the taboo of sailing the ley line early, however, this also makes it difficult to know where the ley line is. As a result, we saw many teams lose out by going too far or not far enough. The key to coming out on top in Santa Barbara is good fleet management. If your tactics are good, it doesn't really matter if your ley line calls are good. Here's how to win in Santa Barbara. First, start by leading to the right if possible. This is where execution comes in because the first boat to get free to tack and lead right will usually have a nice advantage. The next step is to take a look at the fleet. When you start getting near starboard tack ley line, you want to minimize your leverage on the fleet in case someone calls a good ley line and tacks. If you need to, hip up to close the gap. The vital step is to stay in a controlling position on your nearest competitor. If they tack where they believe they're on ley line, be sure to match their tack closely enough that you are able to foot over them if necessary. If you are not sure that you will lay, and you're worried about boats who dug farther into the shift, foot over your competitor, force them to tack, then loose cover them back towards ley line. The key here is that the ley line is essentially a random variable, so we focus on the boats around us instead of the wind in order to make a higher percentage decision. We'll skip the downwind for now and first talk about final beat tactics because I saw a very simple mistake occur here several times. The situation sets up when two boats round the leeward mark, one ahead of the other. As they sail up the course, both like the right, so they hang on port. As they approach ley line, the lead boat tacks. The move that I saw over and over again was that the second boat would continue past the lead boat's line on port tack and then tack on their hip. The problem here is that the second place boat has just sealed the deal. If the boats sail into a header, the lead boat gains, and if they sail into a lift, both boats either lay or overstand, in which case the lead boat maintains the lead anyways. The only scenario in which the lead boat does not win is if the chasing boat sails into a personal puff and rides over the lead boat. To sum this up, on the final leg you should always be looking to lead back towards the finish. I want to finish with a review of basic asymmetrical tactics, and one situation that I saw over the weekend involving this. The basic tactical move in a 29er downwind is a jump, or a simultaneous jibe that puts the trailing boat on the air of the leading boat. There are many ways to set this up, but typically teams should be looking to set up a jump as early as possible, and should discuss the chances of making it happen as the boats near ley line. Likewise, the lead boat should be defending as early as possible, and should reassess their defense tactics as ley line approaches. The basic setup is to soak to a line just below the line of the lead boat, while the defense is to stay below the attacker's line. However, defending gets complicated as ley line approaches if the lead boat has done a poor job staying below. The key here is to jibe early and heat hard, pointing straight at the trailing boat. This forces the trailing boat to either let you duck, in which case you are leading again and you will have a starboard tack advantage at the leeward mark, or jibe early, allowing you to separate low and set up for the jump on the next jibe. If you wait until you're too close to ley line, the trailing boat will just soak hard, so be sure to jibe early. Let's look at a situation that occurred on Sunday. Coming into the leeward mark, Patrick and Storm led Dane and Quinn, with starboard tack advantage to seal the deal. Both boats were almost to ley line, however, Patrick and Storm jibed early, allowing Dane and Quinn to sail in clear air, call a perfect ley line, and sneak around the mark ahead. There are two ways that Patrick and Storm could have ensured the lead. As we just talked about, they had a nice line to leeward of Quinn and Dane, and could have tried to jump when the Wilsons jibed. In the worst case scenario, they probably would have maintained their lead and been owed room at the mark. Alternately, they could have tried to force Quinn past ley line, jibing when they were sure they could lay. Ultimately, I think that the problem was giving up leverage despite having a slim lead. Overall, I think that the weekend should have been a great learning experience for everyone. As Howard emphasized, we need to keep working together as a fleet to push everyone forward. I hope this debrief helps, and I look forward to seeing everyone at Turkey Day.